welcome everybody. You are at the Integrated Curriculum Approach, looking at integrated TK curriculum through the administrator's lens. And you know what? Like already I lost the clicker, right? Just that fast. Okay. You are in charge of telling me where my clicker is. And because you're doing that, I'm giving you a book to take home. There you go. Thank you very much. All right. And because you know the secret birthday message, you're like, book, right? You raised your hand. You know that book?
Yeah.
So then here's a different book. Now, I know it says like classroom, turn it back in, but it's for you to keep because it's edition 1. And edition 2 is out, but we have some extra ones left over. But you will understand the significance of this book before we're done. So, anyway, hi, everybody. Okay, here we go. This is the description when you signed up, right? And we're hoping that as administrators, you're going to have this lens by the time this is over, to be looking at integrated curriculum, to be noticing the 9 domains in the California Learning Foundations when you're looking, doing an observation or supporting your teachers and staff in planning, that you're going to support your teachers and some look-fors during the observation. Now, if you have any questions when this is all over, because it's probably going to move pretty quickly, I'll give you my email at the end. It's on the last slide. But so I do support LACO. I'm a consultant in the UPK and the TK support divisions. And I also am a consultant with CPIN, California Preschool Instructional Network, in 2 regions. LA makes its own region, Region 11, and then I do Region 8, which is Central California, Santa Barbara, Ventura, Kern, and San Luis Obispo counties. I am a retired professor, hence my little quip about teaching from the back of the room, okay? And prior to retiring from being a professor, I helped to design a program for credentialed teachers coming back to get their 24 units so that they could teach TK. So I kind of have a sense of like what people I think are pretty much interested in when they're walking this, path of trying to get some early childhood units. Also, I was a Head Start career development and training specialist. I've designed preschools, I've run them, but I have to tell you that the thing I'm most pleased about is that I am known as, well, I used to be known as the Velcro Queen, but now I've discovered fishing poles. And so I'm now the fishing pole queen. And I can take just about any topic, any subject, and I can make an interactive game, speaking about play, to support content and understanding using fishing poles. Yeah, LACO loves me. Okay, so we're not going to be talking about fishing poles today, but we are going to be talking about developmental approaches to playful learning. On the table, in plastic, is the resource Padlet link. The QR code is there. And you will notice when you go into the Padlet that, is that going to work? Yeah. So the materials from today are uploaded in this column, as well as some of the look-fors have been incorporated into the observation tool. And then mentioned earlier is the TK community of practice for teachers. And I do facilitate that group. It's been a fantastic group. And we would encourage you to share that information with your teachers to join us next year. We meet monthly. It's been really, really wonderful, I think. So we're going to start with a 2-minute activity that demonstrates the integrated nature of learning. So if you look in front of you, you have a colored piece of paper. Do you see it? If you see it, raise your right hand. Yeah, the other right. Okay, good. So now, all right. Now, would you do me a favor and turn to the person to your left? And could you just ask them, may I have your piece of paper? And with that person, okay, yeah, right now, right? And that person's looking the other way, right? So you have to get their attention. Okay. If that person allows you to have that piece of paper, I don't want them to hand it to you. I want you to take your right hand and reach over to their paper and take it. Reach over to their paper. You might have to stand up. That's okay. Reach over and get it. Okay. All right. Good following directions. Somebody jumped ahead. Okay. Okay. Now that you have that piece of paper, hold up that piece of paper with your right hand. Hold it up in the air. Okay. You can put your hand down. So you just engaged in social emotional, which was self-regulation, following directions, most of you. Language and literacy, listening and speaking. Physical, gross motor, raising your hand, crossing the midline, right? An important free writing skill to get from your neighbor. Now, it gets better because I think you're up to this challenge. Can you write your name on your new piece of paper, please? Anywhere, and spelling does count. As soon as you have written your name on that piece of paper, please hold it up in the air. Either hand is fine, you choose. Wonderful, I'm ready to move on. What I want you to do now is take that piece of paper, I want you to crumple it into a sphere. Sounds like it's raining in here. Okay, I want you to take the sphere in any hand. I want you to put it behind your back, put the sphere behind your back. Take your other hand and now transfer the sphere to that other hand. Hold that up in the air with your other hand. Put it on your nose, or to your nose, and now say, I'm a clown. Okay, thank you. You just engaged in math, specifically geometry, because not only is geometry shapes, but it's also spatial orientation. So you had to envision where it was behind your back, right? You transferred, so that's physical development, and it was visual and performing arts because you're a clown now. So the point on this is that, and I'm going to reiterate what Julie said, Dr. Nicholson said earlier, that when children do things, it's not just in one domain, isn't it? Look at all the things that just happened, and it was playful, right? When we talk about the domains, and I thought it was just interesting at that last, at the panel, when they were talking about, oh, we didn't have foundations. Kathy came up, and that's Kathy, by the way, that they kept saying, Kathy. Kathy brought them foundations. What I find is I walk into many classrooms, and there are foundations, and there are frameworks sitting there. And I walk over to the shelf where they are, I take them off the shelf, and I go like this, and the dust comes off of them, because people aren't using them, and I understand. So I'm hoping to make some of these things come alive for you. I also want to remind you that when the UPK plan was completed, TK said that they have to have a curriculum that aligns with the foundations, right? Anyway, that's a bigger thing, but we're going to talk a little bit about familiarity with the foundations. And you might notice that the first foundation, the first icon there is the heart. And they talked a lot about social emotional, didn't they? Because it is the bedrock of school adaptation and academic success. There's a lot of strands underneath, I call it the umbrella domain of social emotional. Two of them are peer interaction and friendships.
Julian, say my friend Julian. Sit quiet. Yeah, I am your friend.
And my work is done. right? I mean, it is so important at this age, friendships, to have peer relationships. So just a really quick primer. You know, there's 3 volumes to the foundations because there's 9 domains, and they are listed here. But I want to talk about integrating foundations and the integrated nature of learning. So how many of you are familiar with that book that you just received, the TK Implementation Guide? Yeah? A few are not. I am so happy then that I get to share it with you. How many of you know that there are videos that go with each chapter? Oh, you are in the right place. All right, wonderful. So let me show you. First of all, the videos are not as comprehensive as the chapters, right? But I just want to encourage you to look at this, to share this with your staff. And you might notice on the side, it says TK curriculum should be developmental. So would you do this with me? Should be developmental along a continuum, should be integrated, and then should be experiential, right? Hands-on activities. Here's a 3-minute video.
Chapter 3, Curriculum in a Transitional Kindergarten Program. Transitional kindergarten teachers have a unique opportunity to plan and implement a curriculum reflective of a developmental continuum. This continuum reinforces and builds upon preschool learning expectations to prepare students for success in traditional kindergarten. Successful transitional kindergarten programs are the result of thoughtful teacher reflection and planning. This kind of integrated planning will reinforce conceptual learning across subject matter. It begins when the teacher decides on a conceptual connecting thread and then creates a lesson plan.
We use themes in our planning for the year. So for instance, we'll use a community theme, and then we'll kind of focus on specific aspects of the community. So we'll look at the workers in the community, the places in the community, and maybe the transportation within the community.
Nikki, are you going to help us? Legoland and Disneyland.
Together in one building?
Yeah, look at here. Legoland and Disneyland together.
From the very beginning, when they start and they have the task to build that 5-room house, you know, they have to think, okay, who's going to get the blocks? What size do I need? And today, when I was working with them, one said, well, I don't want that one here because I want a door here. So I'm going to, I'm going to leave a little opening here. That's spatial awareness. Getting the right blocks, getting the right size blocks. So measuring and, all the math skills that go into that. It's just a wonderful process for children to experience. They start there, and then they start thinking about, well, who lives here? A family. I'm there, my sister, my little brother. And they start constructing the meaning of family. So social studies in action. But right away they want to go get the car. And then, okay, when you get the car, well, we need gas. Okay, we need gas because we're going to go to the bank and get some money so then we can go to the market. And they really have an amazing curiosity for how things really work in the real world.
It's nothing they need to master in their work areas. It's experiential, but it incorporates those themes in those areas. And then math can even happen then, because we might use manipulatives like cars and planes and boats for sorting and counting and addition and subtraction. So we try and bring all those themes together and then use them in all of our academic areas.
So when I'm talking about developmental continuum, I do want you to ask yourself, is what's happening in September the same as May? Because if it is there much progression? Okay. And when you're looking at integrated, more than one at a time, experiential, hands-on, I'm going to say it again, you heard it there twice this morning, no ditto sheets, no ditto sheets, no ditto sheets. We're really trying to move away from ditto sheets. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Chapter 3,
So anybody familiar with the alignment document? When you look at the alignment document, it is designed to show what children typically do at around 48 and 60 months in the left columns. And then in the right column, the California Common Core State Standards for kindergarten. But I highlighted here in pink that, oh, when I do this, you can't see that. Okay. By the end of kindergarten is on the right side. Now, as we're looking towards 4-year-olds starting TK earlier and earlier, you know, by 24, 25, you could have a child start TK who was like 3 years old the day before, right? They are getting younger and younger. And this talks about at around 48 months, which is probably the age of the children that you are working with. So while this says preschool, these apply towards the TK children. Now, I want to do a quick exercise with you. So I want you to think about, and you can write this down, you don't have to say it out loud, like how old are you? Just write down your age, okay? Write down your age. I was going to do it with weight, but I thought after lunch that wouldn't be nice. Okay, and I want you to figure out what 25% of that is. Okay, like you're administrators, right? So either divide by 4 or multiply by 0.25, okay? Okay. So 25% of your age. Right? So then I want you to add what 25% of your age is right now, 25% of your age to how old you are right now. Are you following me? Exactly. So I made a chart. So, okay. So I'm 60 years old. Wink, wink. But let's say for this, I'm 60 years old, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.25 because I want to know what 25% is of 60, and that's 15. Do we agree with that before we move on? What is that sound? Okay, so now I'm going to add my current age of 60 to 15 because that's 25% more than I am, right? And I come up with 75 years old, 75 years.
Yeah.
Okay, are you with me there? Okay. This would be like if you have a birthday next year and you're 25% older, you are that bigger number. That's like the change in 1 year. When you go from being 4 to 5, and 25% more of your whole life happens in 1 year.
Okay.
Who is doing that? Hey, I am on a Zoom call. I can't. Whoever's on my Zoom call, please be quiet. Thank you so much. Not only that, but it should say start video, I think. Could somebody please go and get Gus, the IT person, so we can double check? Thanks. But thank you for joining me, Zoom person in Zoom land. Okay, so let's get back to this point. Do you understand what's happening? So not only is it time, right, extending your life by 25% more, but as Dr. Nicholson said, the neurons are growing so fast. There is never another time in your whole life that is different from 0 to 6, where you are growing faster. No pressure, okay? But it's up to you guys, okay? Make it right, because we got a chance. We got a chance to do this right. Okay. If only. All right. What this document doesn't do is tell you exactly what to do in TK, but we can follow along to get an idea of what children typically do by looking at the preschool learning foundations at around 48 months. What's different and very challenging for the education field is coming into TK is so different than going into second grade. If you go into second grade, you've had first grade. There is some foundation that you guys have all been through together. But you open the door to TK and you've got kids who've never been in preschool, right? I mean, it's a very, very different, you just don't know who's walking through the door. So yeah, so Gus, should the recording be on? Where it says start video? Okay, but this doesn't say start video on my computer. Or, oh, all right, fine, okay. So am I good? That was really very odd. I mean, I've been saying, show me a sign, but I didn't think it would happen during a conference, you know? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Okay. I know, I keep losing it because the person who's in charge to tell me where it is busy. Okay, I'll use this. So you have this document. Okay, that worked. The integrated nature of learning. This is for you to take with you. And I just want to point out that on Roman numeral 7, it talks about who this is for. It's for you, administrators, and for teachers. Gives you some guidance on practices that support integrated approach to curriculum planning. And it defines curriculum. It says curriculum occurs within play, within daily routines, within conversations and interactions. Now, if you look a little further, it talks about play as the context for learning and about little scientists to figure things out to build knowledge. It defines learning as constructs, right? And much of it occurring through play. And then it talks about curriculum. Now it says children from birth to 5 do not build or acquire their knowledge and skills in domain-specific categories, one domain at a time. They relate to each learning experience as a whole. And so when we're looking at the domains, and these are the icons from the domain, just want to remind you that it happens through play. So even though it's a playful environment, playful learning, it doesn't mean that the classroom is like a free-for-all and unorganized. It is essential to supporting children's learning that self-regulation is encouraged, because really when you're a young 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 25-year-old, because your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, you need to learn how to organize your thoughts and your time. A visual schedule is really important because adults and children view schedules very differently. You know, and there's a cultural component. For example, some people feel like it's okay to get to, function late. In fact, it's, they don't expect me at 6. I know it's at 6, but nobody shows up at 6, right? And then adults like look at clocks, right, to see, to keep on schedule. But if you were asked to write down your morning routine, an adult might do something like the things they have to do at a certain time. I have to get up at 6 o'clock when the alarm goes off. I make coffee at 6:10. I take a shower at 6:20. I get dressed at 6:35. I wake up the family at 6:45. I leave for work at 7. And if you repeat that schedule over and over, it becomes a routine. But by contrast, young children prefer a schedule that is determined by an orderly sequence of events rather than by the actual time that it occurs. So it's more important for a young child that snack occurs after story time and before going outside, rather than snack happens right at 10 o'clock. So children don't require rigidity in the schedule, but they need predictability. So in other words, they don't care if snack is right at 10, they need it between those other activities. A ritual is something that happens like if they sing a song when they're cleaning up, right? It's a cue to help children beginning to, pick up toys. These are a couple of examples of class schedules. The pink arrow on the blue side is indicating that that's the activity that's happening. And I talked to a teacher not long ago about this child who came in and had really tough separation anxiety. And so they made it his job to move that pink arrow down as the day went on, right? And that child then knew that arrow was getting closer and closer to pickup time when he would be picked up. And it really, really helped. Some teachers, when I visit their classrooms, what I have to say, one of the first things I do when I walk into a classroom is I look for a visual schedule. And I'm like, so where's your visual schedule? It's like, oh, you know what? It's May. We had one in September, but they know how it works. So we don't have it anymore. And I respond, I know that June comes after May, but I buy a calendar every single year. Mhm. I hope you don't mind that I'm showing you some videos. You know, we teach the way we like to learn, and to me, this is helpful. So let's go ahead and watch a little bit about promoting an integrated approach in the learning environment and experiences. This is 4 minutes long.
Let's do Daddy's hand on this one.
Okay.
Tracy. How many fingers?
1, 2, 3.
Learning is integrated. Children make sense of language simultaneous with using movements of our body, simultaneous with creating a cognitive concept like spatial relations or causality. So the place I like to begin the conversation when we're talking about integrated curriculum is to talk about the fact that learning is integrated, that the mind of a child does not compartmentalize math concepts over here and language concepts here and causality here.
I think it's important to support children's development across all the domains because that's the way they are growing. When a child is coming down a slide, you know, what's going on? Well, they're having the wonderful feel of coming down. They're learning about gravity. They're experiencing the emotion of mastery, I can do this, and being able to communicate and feeling some pride in that. So it happens all at once.
It made sense then in California as we developed the foundations and the framework that describe what we want children to learn and how we want to encourage teachers to provide for that learning, that they are divided across the academic domains.
Do you want to show us doing it?
But when you sit in a classroom and think about how do I create opportunities for children to learn, how do I develop curriculum, then I'm not thinking about dividing my time across each of the different academic domains. I'm saying, how do I create a meaningful experience for children to investigate, explore, come up with their own hypotheses, and in the process of doing that, children are making sense of the experience.
Use the same colors. So it's gonna fall. Then I have to connect it and make another one.
Why do you have to connect them?
Because I need to make 2 windows.
Okay.
I made 2. One big and one small.
Indeed, I may have a block area, and in that block area, children are going to explore concepts of spatial relations, concepts of number. They're going to talk story.
But they could come in too. Because they're going to read the prince. This is the V. He's going to read the prince. And he's going to go in the Princess Land too, right? He's going to go with Kira.
And they are going to negotiate who does what when. So in a moment of play, children have now taken us through a journey through each of the domains of learning. So play really is the vehicle that allows us to integrate the curriculum, because children within play are going to effectively accomplish language, cognitive, social, emotional, physical development all wrapped into one.
So at one point she says, you know, indeed, I may have a block area. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things that were said earlier today. I had no idea, again, what Dr. Nicholson's presentation was, but this you can take to the bank in early childhood education. Block play is so important to all domains. In fact, Froebel, who was the father of, you know, kindergarten back in Germany in the late 1800s, he premised his kindergarten on block play, and he called them gifts, and the blocks would get more and more advanced through time. Block play, and I'm talking about big blocks, and that is different than Duplos or small blocks that link together, okay? So I highly, highly recommend that you look for this, and if you do ECHRS, which is the environmental rating scale, that there's a designated area for block play, so nobody walks through the block play, and that children have like a sign that they can leave up that says in process, so that they can come back and build later. I cannot emphasize how important block play is, and I think I heard that it's being eliminated along with dramatic play in many schools, many TKs. We got to bring it back, absolutely. Also, they need money to buy the blocks. Okay, so in the upper corner here, this is California Preschool Program Guidelines, and the link to that's a CDE publication, will be on the Padlet that you can get to, and you can download that free of charge. And there's a couple of chapters in there specifically for administrators that you might be curious to look at. So back to the foundations, that's what children typically do at around 48 and 60 months. The framework is what teachers do to support children, okay? And there are some overarching principles. Two of them listed are learning is integrated and play is a primary context for learning. So you received this book today in your bag. I highly recommend you take a look at it. I'm not going to spend much time going over the continuum, except to say that adult planned and directed play, although it sounds like Dr. Nicholson was saying, that shouldn't be for much of the day. As you're looking to have activities, if it's presented in a playful manner, that is really helpful, because children are learning through play, even if the teacher has a goal. And it's okay to have goals, things tasks that they're working towards. So you received in your packet, you received a path game, and I'm just curious, is this that term path game? Is that something you're familiar with or you see in the classrooms? Okay, do you know the difference? I want to be sure I'm not like teaching to the choir here. The difference between a long path game and a short path game. Okay, the difference between differentiated dice. So happy you're here. Okay, so I want to tell you what you have. You have a die, right? And take a look at your die. Notice the pips or the dots on the die. What do you notice? Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, and they're repeated, aren't they? Okay, right. And then part of the reason is when you get into the foundations, you'll notice that children at around 48 months, they're really good at small numbers, 1, 2, and 3. Many times they're not ready for 4, 5, and 6. You might find that hard to believe, but it's true. The other thing is, this die is for you to take home. On the table, you can take a look. There are some dice. And what is the difference between these small dice on the table that have to stay on the table and the ones that you're taking home? Right, they're similar, right? The numerals are on there, exactly, right? So when a child looks at the numeral 3, they might not know that what you're asking for is a set of 3 items. And there's a research out of Hawaii that says if we introduce numerals too early, children don't understand it and they think they're not good in math, and that persists their whole life. I teach undergraduate and graduate math, and I taught the credentialed teachers, and they had no idea, right? It's just not something that we talk about much, but we are failing in math and language and literacy. We have opportunities that can really be helpful, and one of them is this, developmentally appropriate. Now, so when I said it should be different in May than in September, you should be using dice in May that have maybe 1, 2, maybe up to 4 or 5 or 6, if the kiddos are ready, right? I made these for you while I was watching Netflix. I bought 150 of these, right? They're not all exactly the same because sometimes I start watching the show, I forget what I do. So maybe you only have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm sorry if I didn't give you any 3s. Okay, but we're going to play a path game. So I want to tell you how you're going to play. But first I want to talk about, real quick, the idea behind a path game is to really what it is it's getting kiddos ready for number line later, right? But you notice there's no numerals on here. The idea here is to roll the die and move that many spaces, which is 1-to-1 correspondence, right? This is one of the foundations of math. So when I introduce this to kids, I teach it to them. Okay, it's all right. It's still playful because we're having fun. But you know what kids do? They often they'll roll the die and they'll count the spot they're on as 1. They'll go 1, 2. When the idea is to move forward, 1, 2. Before we're done, I'll give you a suggestion about how to address that. So I actually teach them how to do this, but then I have them work in dyads and I have them play. So you can play as a dyad or a triad. I would like each of you to play. And so we're only going to take like 3 minutes to do that, but you have actually a piece to move, right? And it looks like this. There's 2 of them in there, I think. Yeah. And so this was worth the price of admission right here. So you take the binder clip, right? And you put the picture in. You now have your piece to move, right? Oh, I know. I'm always waiting for that ooh. If you like that, watch this. Sometimes I can't remember which color bus I have, right? Or which color bone I have, or whatever that piece is. So what you want to do is make markers for your kids that have their picture on it, right? Oh, yeah, I know. This is the stuff. These are the things. This is social emotional, right? Now the child feels successful, right? Because when we're talking about self-regulation, now it's one less thing to have to remember what is my piece. So now I can remember what am I doing on the game. So we're going to take 3 minutes. You probably won't have time, but I want you to play with each other, roll the die, take turns, and move along your half game. You start here, roll the die to get to school. Any questions? Have fun. See you in 3 minutes. Okay, so the other person is going this way. I forgot to say so. Oh, triad. Oh, when you're a triad, that's right. Oh, so you're playing different games.
Oh,
And that's okay. I was not clear. That's okay. That's okay. He comes late, he doesn't play. Okay, 1 more minute, and then I'm going to tell on myself. I was not clear. The way we play this is one person is going this way and the other person's going that way. Okay, I forgot to tell you that. I'm so sorry. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. What's that? By the way, if you have envy of a path that doesn't have a picture that you have, if you are like really into elephants, but you ended up with the dog one, don't worry, you elephant envy people, because all 5 of these games are in the resource Padlet. You can download them and print them out. Yeah, you're welcome. You betcha. Also, when we play this, we tell them about turn taking, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. When somebody gets to the end, that doesn't mean it's over. They sit there with their friend until that person rolls the die to get to the end. It's nice if they can, do a fist bump, a handshake, say good game, show them some way to show appreciation to the other person for interacting. The difference between a short path game, short path games usually have just about 10 spaces because the idea is simply to understand you roll the die, count how many pips are on the die, or if you're using a die with numeral, identify the symbol. What does that mean? Move that many spaces. When they're done getting that, you move to the long path game. And there's a sample on your table. And I believe we've put it on the resource Padlet for you to download. Because here what you're going to do is use 2 die, because now they're going to add on. But use the small die, still the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 die. And sometimes on the other die, I just do a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, because the idea is to be adding on, right? Doesn't that make sense? Okay. The nice thing about this one is we tied it into language and literacy, right? We tied it into the Little Red Riding Hood book. Now, with intentional discussion, the teacher can incorporate other domains such as history, social science by simply saying, how do you travel from your house to other places? Who do you visit? Did you see where I put my clicker? It's here. I got it. Okay, so some look fors. If I were walking into the classroom, I would be looking for a visual schedule. I'd be looking to see if there's integrated learning domains. I'd be looking for teacher interaction. I'd be looking at classroom management. I'd be looking at inclusive environment. I would be looking at the group size. I would be looking at developmentally appropriate practices specifically around the length of the activity. I would be looking for no dittos. I don't want dittos. We don't put out stippled dittos anymore. And I'll give you another bad example before you leave. Yes, ma'am. I can't speak to that. I don't know that we have a number. I'll tell you what, it has to do with the developmental level of your children and often how many English speakers or how much support do they need. So I can't say, sometimes a group size is only 2 children. Yeah. And you know what? Your group size should increase as the year goes on, hopefully. Yeah, right? Okay. But hey, I want to tell you this story. This is a true story. So I was training folks on using path games. I think it was at one of the CEPA trainings. And then we got together a few months later. And one of the teachers, so I was like, I check in. So you guys using path games? One of the participants said, oh, I love path games. She said, but my administrator came in and just kind of stood at the door and said, can you tell me a little bit about what's happening here? And she said, oh, yeah, they're doing path games. It's like, what? She says, oh, yeah, see this table over here, they're doing a short path game. They're doing a long path game. They're doing a path game with higher number. Their dice have numerals instead of pips or dots. And those kids in the corner that look like they're just messing around, they have this big old die that they throw, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and they're making up a game about how many spaces you hop on the carpet. The administrator stood there for a minute, looked around and said, "Would you do our next PD?" So she now became the professional development support for her colleagues. Part of it is, do you know what you're looking at, right? And can you take it outside? 180 minutes, like when you have activities outside that are learning activities. So like lunch doesn't count. But if you're doing learning activities, it counts towards that
But it's
mandated time.
bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout.
Traditionally, we used to think of the outdoors as being a place for gross motor development.
Okay, Hannah, close the top of the bottle. Now it's Eli's turn. Here you go, Eli.
The learning environment that exists inside a classroom can actually be mirrored in the outdoor environment.
Oh. He has spiky hair?
If we think about all the social contact that's going on out there and also the cognitive learning that's going on out there.
Found it!
Where should we hang our bird feeder, Serena? It's a place where we can explore the creatures who live in the bushes and under the rocks.
The other ones too. Oh, we found the birdhouse. Look, he's eating off your bird feeder.
She's eating off the birdie feeder.
Yeah.
It's a place where we watch the world of nature transform itself. It has potential to be a wonderful science laboratory. And so how do we begin to enrich the possibilities for thinking about the play space as a laboratory for learning with respect to science, with respect to art, with respect to language?
So, path game outside. Here's an example. The reason that I do this is children learn kinesthetically. And that starts from birth. They have to touch, feel, mouth things. If you jump a number line, it makes more sense to, instead of hopping on the square or the circle that you're on when you're counting 1, 2, instead of hopping forward 1, 2. So we play this game. You start on the box, roll the die, and jump forward that many spaces. So sometimes we just do stuff outside because the materials are there as well. And here is a shortened video of something I've done with children. I give them each a small paper bag. They are to put 5 natural items in there, which in itself is a learning experience, like why is a bottle cap not natural? And they walk around, they pick up 5 things. We come back in, we dump everything in the circle when we're in circle. Now we have this huge collection. Now we're going to use it for sorting and resorting. Now, as you watch this video, notice how many domains are integrated into this learning activity.
I went for a walk and gathered a collection of natural items from outside. I asked the child to sort the collection into groups. Here are the groups, and then I asked for the rule. And they said, these are oak gulls, these are acorn caps, these are rocks, these are green leaf and moss. I put the collection back together again and asked if the collection could be sorted into different groups. Then it was presented as this sorting. I asked what the rule was, and I was told, this group is not green. This group is green. I took away the non-green group and kept the green group and asked if the green group could be sorted into even more groups. This is what was on the paper, and I asked, what is the rule here? And I was told, this is a branch, this is a non-flower, and this one has flowers. So we have moved from sorting into classifying.
So lots of language and literacy, outside, science, math, and social emotional as well, you know, gathering and then interacting. And when we talk about math for TK, one of the best things we can do is have children sort collections, put it together, have them resort it. And so they're looking at the different attributes. So what I'm saying is, if you work for Lakeshore, I'm sorry, let's use things that have more than one attribute. Let's not get these plastic collections. Like, I get it, maybe in September if you're trying to make a point, but let's get things that are in the environment so we can really redefine, right? Yeah, and really, really make the frame bigger, because once they start applying it to things that are you know, are natural like that, then the nuances become better. Oh, well, you know, he's a boy who likes trucks, right? And she's a this, and they both like purple, but they don't like to eat whatever. You know, we just have to start looking through a bigger lens at attributes. Now, on your table, one of my favorite books. And the reason why is it's an Eric Carle book. I welcome you to touch this book because I don't know how they do this, but the pages are cut. Remember, children learn kinesthetically. They have to touch, they have to manipulate, right? So when you're talking about a half circle, it looks like that. When you're talking about a star, it's cut out. When you're talking about an oval, you can feel the oval. When you're talking about a triangle, okay? So there's that. There's also a rebus in here, which really now is incorporating not only language and literacy, but visual arts. So here's the rebus, right? One of my all-time favorite books. I'm going to show you a video of how a teacher now has used this to enrich into other domains.
When the moon comes up,
And after
look for the biggest star.
I go look, found it,
Okay? Below it is an oval.
found it.
And behind the oval
Just
is
turn the page.
and behind the oval is a triangle. Triangle. Okay? Yes. Go under the triangle. Now go up and
I found the circle. Oh, I found the circle. I found the circle up here.
Okay. Okay, go on the cube and then on the chair. Go straight ahead. I don't know. And then go up the stairs and down the stairs.
There you find the circle. Find the circle? I found the circle right in there. Okay, now get straight. Then go up the stairs. Down the stairs. And there I find a door. Then you find your sacred puppy.
Notice the kid at the end who's holding the puppy. His job. Hand over the puppy. So many things going on there. So when we're talking about language and literacy and interaction, I put this up just as a quick example, right? We like pizza. And so this became, you know, a class activity where they made pizzas, they literally made pizzas, right? And so we smell the spices, we make a pizza, we read The Little Red Hen makes pizza, and then we make a class book, right? But we also use it as an opportunity to talk about book genres, which is what else does a Little Red Hen make? Oh, she also makes bread, right? And we move it into then a nonfiction book about bread, bread, bread. But if you look at that circle, at those icons, there are so many, many domains that are integrated here. So, just keep those kinds of things in mind. Here's another look for. And by the way, on the table, please don't take it because I only have a few of them. These are like look fors that I kind of created from this breakout room. On the Padlet, there's look fors that are like for the whole institute. Those are just a few things I wanted to highlight. But if I were walking into a classroom and I saw this book being read, does anybody know this book, On Monday When It Rained? Okay, so she's going to read this book On Monday When It Rained, but I want you to see the interactions. You'll notice a lot of these things. You'll walk in and, notice what's happening if you were in the classroom seeing this. By the way, realia is simply, real stuff, right? Watch how she incorporates some real stuff.
On Monday when it rained, my mother said I couldn't play. I was disappointed. Lacey, would you like to show us what your disappointed face looks like? Pass it to Hayden and we can see a disappointed face. That looks pretty disappointed. Why was he disappointed?
Because he couldn't ride his red bike.
He couldn't go outside. What could he do instead?
He could play inside.
That is a great problem solver. He could play inside. On Tuesday, when my grandma came to dinner, we had macaroni and cheese and chocolate milk. Burped out loud. I was embarrassed. Give it to Gavin. That's a good embarrassed face, Gavin. Oh, there you go. That's very embarrassed. On Friday, when I went to my cousin Jamie, she wouldn't let me play with her new dump trunk in the sandbox. I was angry. Everyone can show us their angry face. Oh my goodness. That was a good one, Dylan. I know. Your face does turn red when you get really angry. Oh, on Saturday, I was excited. I love the way you're passing it to each of your friends. Oh, lovely, excited. Oh, nice, Emma. Good job, Gavin. Oh, wonderful video. On Sunday, when I called my friend Peter to see if he could come over to my house to play, his mother said he was sick. I was lonely. Let's go with lonely. Could he do some Legos or maybe play on his computer or draw? Right. Don't you play in your room sometimes?
So I chopped that up a little bit because we don't have much time. You can go onto YouTube and watch the whole thing if you want. But you notice her engagement. You notice the children looking at a mirror. You notice the children passing the mirror. You notice the discussion, and you notice that cognitive, like what else could you do, right? I mean, there were so many things, going on there, right? So that is On Monday When It Rained. Now, we talked about those three elements of TK curriculum, right? And one of them was understanding the developmental continuum. We need to know it because it helps us, plan things that are developmentally appropriate. NAEYC, National Association for the Education of Young Children, has this changing picture of children at 3, 4, and 5. Now, I do want to say that when they talk about this, they're only talking about 4 categories: physical, intellectual, social, and emotional. Different than the 9 domains, that we're talking about in the foundations. Nonetheless, I think it's very important to understand what the developmental continuum is, but even more important to know how to support. And again, our TK credentialed teachers, many of them have not had this experience. So I find this book to be very, very useful because listed in here are, in fact, what happens at 3, 4, and 5. And at the back of this book is a CD, and on the CD is an activity. So what we did is we ran off the activity, and I'm going to explain it to you. We won't be able to do it in its entirety. It's an introduction. So here's what we have at the table. Is it okay if I hold this for just a sec? Thanks. So at the table, we want you to know, first of all, what is the source of this material? And then these are color-coded. So for are these 3-year-olds? Yeah. For the 3-year-olds, they're in pink. For the 4-year-olds, they're in yellow, right? And there's several sets. So I'd like you to work with either a dyad or a triad, just to go ahead and take off the paper clip. And what you will do, see if I can get the directions right this time. You'll notice that on this column, it's blank, right? And that blank column is how adults can help. So what you do is read across the row and figure out what would be the best way the adult could help. Okay, so we just want to introduce you to that. We're going to spend about 5 or 6 minutes on it. And again, you can work with a dyad or a triad, but there's 4 whole sets here on the table. And these are class sets, so when you're done, if you'll just clip together what you have, I would really appreciate it. And of course, Alan has the answers because he got the book. Oh, are there any questions? Please go ahead and start. Here's a few more. I just dropped that. Oh. Ten more minutes. Okay, all right. Actually, we're going to give you 5 minutes on this because I have other things to tell you and we're almost done. Sorry. You got the idea. I'm not going to hand out any more of those. What do I have here? These we're going to save. No, I think we're good. A 10-minute warning in 10 minutes. Okay. That's good. that they could keep apart with glue. Okay, then we identified common colors, so there's red, rainbow, and green. You can use it in such a way that yes. What about the encouragement? Vocabulary for rapidly ranging at this age between 2,000 and 4,000 words. So when we wow, and we did that for years. Yeah, it's this one again. This one has to again. Fire pension. Oh, that's one, okay. So I need to interrupt because it gets easier the more you get into it, less choices, right? But I'm going to ask you to just wrap this up in 1 minute, and then I'm going to show you where all the answers are and where you can download this so you don't have to have DAP book envy, because this is available to you. So friends, just a reminder, the resource Padlet can be accessed using the QR code. When you look in the column from an integrated curriculum approach, when you scroll down, this whole activity is there for you. The whole article actually is there for you. Do you see the value of this? Yeah. Can you see the value for teachers having this and also even ordering materials? And I get called into classrooms a lot. Dr. Walsh, I got challenging behaviors. One of the first things I look at is it developmentally appropriate? Are we asking of children what they are ready to do? Do they have the self-regulation and the executive function? Is there a mismatch? And so I think these kinds of things really are helpful. So thank you for experiencing that. And again, part of our introduction for today was to share resources with your teachers, but going hand in hand with what is DAP is got to tell you about self-regulation and executive function. This is a snippet. There's 2 parts of this video, and you can access it on the LACO UPK website. You'll see it on that Padlet. Let's go ahead and watch a little bit about self-regulation and executive function at this age.
Welcome to Los Angeles County Office of Education Transitional Support Unit's presentation of self-regulation and executive function in a transitional kindergarten classroom. This is part 1 of 2 parts. The growth of self-regulation is a cornerstone of early childhood development that cuts across all domains of behavior. The relevance of self-regulation to young children's school readiness is widely acknowledged because of the importance of cognitive, behavioral, and emotional self-control to learning and classroom conduct. Most years are a time of major physical, cognitive, language, and social emotional growth. Research indicates that brain development in the early years is foundational to all later development. Development in the preschool years builds on the dramatic changes in brain structure and functioning that occur during the first 3 years of life. In the preschool years, the brain changes most significantly in the area of the prefrontal cortex. In particular, growth in the prefrontal cortex is related to the development of executive function skills. This 5-minute video discusses the developmental continuum and components of executive function. Here is a video snippet.
Science tells us that brains, minds, are built, not born. And at the center of this dynamic architecture are a set of skills called executive function and self-regulation.
Children's self-regulation and executive function are key ingredients in their lifetime performance. It's not just about learning language or learning numbers or learning colors. We have to be able to work effectively with others, with distractions, with multiple demands that contribute to the productivity of the American workforce.
Just look at your shapes. What should you have done next?
Educators, I think, are looking for just this sort of thing. And when we describe what we mean by executive function, they say, yes, that's it. That's exactly, the problem. These kids, they can tell me these rules, but they can't actually use them.
What is executive function?
Safety goggles. Probably the best way to think about it is sort of like an air traffic control system in the brain. Just like an air traffic control system has to manage lots of airplanes going on lots of runways and really exquisite timing and so on. A child has to manage a lot of information and avoid distractions. We really think of it as involving working memory and inhibitory control and mental flexibility. Take a situation where a child is having to take turns. So first of all, the child has to have inhibitory control. The child has to be able to stop whatever he or she is doing and let the other child take a turn. But when it's your turn again, you also have to remember what it is you're supposed to be doing. So that pulls on working memory. If the children who are taking the turns after you do something unpredictable, you have to be able to adjust what you're going to do next. And that requires mental flexibility. Children who are struggling with these capacities often look like children who just aren't paying attention, or children who are deliberately not controlling themselves.
How does executive function develop?
Well, you just have to go on there and watch. And there's
Welcome to Los.
I just want to show you this video. This is initial writing.
When they whales.
Strawberries,
Strawberries and whales.
milk and cheese,
When they milk and cheese whales.
spaghetti,
When they spaghetti whales.
taco stuff,
When they taco stuff whales.
bananas,
When they bananas whales.
More potatoes.
Needs more potatoes. What?
Lettuce.
Yeah.
And tomatoes.
But we need lettuce and tomatoes. What
Yep.
else?
I think that's it.
Oh, it ain't. We got some more.
What?
More. What else?
I think we got, I don't know, what else do you need?
What else do we need, my daddy?
So there's so much to writing. We won't have time to go through all of it, but I want to leave you with a couple of things as an administrator that you might consider. You can look up the developmental path of writing. It's in the foundation book. It sits there, talks about the difference between scribbling and writing and picture drawing. But what your teachers need is to have the physical development and sensory integration activities that will build the core body, right? Because it's proximal-distal. The core body grows out to the fine motor. And so children need activities that help their posture and their core strength and their social stability and their arm rotation and grip. And so to do that, they need to do these things. What you will see in the Padlet is something that looks like very small up here, but it's there, and it's like activities that can happen, right? So go on the Padlet, you can download it. If you walk in to look for writing in the classroom, look for writing centers, look for integration of writing materials indoor and out, look for activities that support that sensory component of writing, watch for activities where there's finger play, watch the teacher modeling the useful writing, watch for visual perception skills, throwing and catching leads to writing. For children to recognize, write their names and opportunities throughout the day. And remember, I said, I'm going to say no more dittos. That upper corner there, that's stippling. They're just doing it mindlessly. It's really not teaching writing. It teaches writing no more than putting noodles on something that looks like a letter N. We've got to move away from these things to authentic activities and look for writing all throughout the classroom. So there's our examples here. When you're looking at integrated learning, just keep in mind the teachers are doing a lot of these things, and I'm actually not going to show the snails because Julie did. But before you go, I told you I do teach, not teach, I facilitate the community of practice for TK teachers. And I said to them, hey, there's this Administrator Institute. What do you wish your administrators knew? These were some of the things that were said. Wish the administrators knew about the foundations, wish we had training on DRDP. Wish that curriculum connected to the preschool learning foundations. Wish that they had flexibility on using commercial curriculum. Wish that administrators understood that when they're making paper airplanes, there's so many domains being covered, right? Wish that they had training on children's self-regulation, classroom behavior, and how to set up the classroom. Wish, if you could make a magic wand and do this, that classrooms have or are adjacent to bathrooms and how to support toilet training. And please, a budget to purchase items throughout the year as the children's progress and development changes. This included in your pamphlet is the Transitional Kindergarten COP. Please share this with your teachers. I'd love to have them in the group next year. And I have a question. Did we do this today? Did we cover integrated curriculum approaches? Do you have more look-fors? All right. So don't forget the resource Padlet. And here is my information. If you need to touch base with me, please take that differentiated wood die that I made for you with love, the binder clip, the path game, and you have the integrated nature of learning, as well as the TK implementation guide to take with you. And I thank you so much for coming after lunch and hanging out with me for an hour and a half. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.